Hello friends, here I am with your Intro to Fusion 360 tutorial. What we're going to do in this tutorial is I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of the interface here, just so you know where everything is and what you can do in each of these spaces. Okay, so this is your Cartesian coordinate plane here, alright? You can orbit around the Cartesian coordinate plane by clicking on this widget, which will kind of rotate it around for you. And this is nice because it'll give you like really set points of orientation. If you ever get lost when you're orbiting around, so you can also click and kind of drag around, that will orbit it around for you. Let's say you like flip it upside down or like something, something crazy happens, you don't even know where you are. You can always just hit this home button and it'll take you back. This is always your home position here. You can reset that, but we won't worry about that so much right now. We'll just use the default home. So again, you can always just click here. You can zoom in and zoom out by just using your scroll on your 3-button mouse. The 3-button mouse is very important. Okay, so let's say, I want to view this and I want this to be over here for some reason. See how this is kind of being cut off here, right? Maybe I have something right over here that I want to get to. We're going to use the pan function for that. For the pan function, you can just click and drag, and that will move the plane around within your given screen. So it's really common to be zooming first and then kind of panning over to what you're zooming into. So zoom again is just your wheel on your mouse, and pan is just a click of the wheel and a drag. Okay, then there's orbit. Again, you can obviously orbit around like so, find your home position again, or you can hold down Shift and click your scroll button, and that will orbit around for you. This is the orbit point right here. When you click, that little green dot shows up. So that's going to be your orbit center. Okay, it's going to default to the center. You can change that. So for instance, in Jess's model here, her orbit center, I don't know, it's just like up floating, and it's not really doing me much good because it's making this rotation like kind of bizarre. Okay, what I can do is I can right click on an object, right click on the plane itself and hit set orbit center, and that will just allow you, see it gives you this little green friend here. You can click anywhere you'd like, and then that will change your orbit center. So now when I hold down Shift, the whole thing is actually orbiting around this point. Okay, see that? See how it changes that? Rather than a point that's just sort of like floating up in no man's land. Everything that I just showed you how to do with the shortcodes of the mouse, you can also do by clicking these widgets. So here's your pan, it'll give you the pan tool, and you can then just click and drag your left mouse button. Same thing here, here's your orbit button, okay, so same thing. When you're spending a lot of time in this program, clicking a button every time you want to do one of these things can be really time consuming and, in my opinion, quite maddening. So I would highly, highly recommend that you use a 3-button mouse for this. If you're at school and you forgot your 3-button mouse, again, you can achieve everything I just showed you with those mouse shortcodes, with your orbit here, your pan, and then also your zoom in. Okay, so here's your zoom as well. Click zoom. Let's see. Do fit. All right, it'll give you the tool that you need to do that. Okay, so that's how you move this Cartesian coordinate plane around. Okay, so some other things that we have going on here. These buttons down here, these are your display settings, visual style. I've like shaded with visual edges only, shaded. You can maybe only see wireframes. Let me show you what that looks like a little bit. So you can change things to wireframe. Usually like shaded with visual edges is what the normal set to, but you can like reset this. Here's a tranquil blue feature. So you can maybe want an environmental dome. I don't even know what that does. Oh, look at the dome. Okay, so there's a bunch of different things that you can do in here. Infinity pool, that's kind of cool. I'm gonna get rid of that dome here. Yeah. Okay, and so for instance, if you get into a situation where you cannot find this plane here, it might be in effects, right? Because I definitely want to show a ground plane. You know, so you can mess around with those, see what's going on. This is actually how you control your grid here. Okay, so for instance, if your grid is not showing, try fixing it from adaptive to fixed. That will happen sometimes. Don't worry so much about it, but this is the fix for it. So everything that you need to know about the grid will be in here. And you can mess with these settings as you learn more, see what works best for you. You can do multiple viewports if you wanted to. So you could have, you know, a view from the top, a view from your home screen, a view from the left, and the view from the right, if you wanted to. And then you can move these all around separately, relative to, you know, if you're moving the space around or not. Or you can set it to single view. However you like to work with your program is totally fine. Okay, so that's the bottom widget bar. Again, most of that stuff you can achieve with your mouse. Okay, so let's take a look at the data panel. This is actually where all of your stuff is going to be saved. Okay, you cannot save Fusion files on a disk. It all saves to the cloud. So when you go to File, Save, I'll just save this as, we can give it a name here, so, and then I can do a new project. Here's all the projects that I have. So I'll do a new project, and I'm going to just name it, I'll name it Tutorials. Okay, you just hit Save. Okay, and then it's going to save it into my tutorials project here, which apparently I have two. Okay, so we will just go ahead and click Save, be done, and then when I go to my name here, oops, when I go to projects here, I can find tutorials, click on it, and my files will be in here. What's really nice about this is you can save versions of your files as you go. So when I go to, so once I've saved this and set up a project folder for it, what is actually happening is that it is going to just save a version of this. So every time you save, it'll give you a new version, and you can always go back to the next version, which is really nice. It also has an autosave feature on it when the program closes, which again is also really nice because sometimes you try to do stuff in here and it just doesn't quite work and everything breaks. Okay, so we'll click out of here. Okay, then we have our browser. In the browser, this is just going to be this first one here, so if I collapse this, this first one here is just going to be the name of the file, and then here's everything that's inside of it. I have my document settings. Okay. Underneath document settings is where you could change the unit. So if you click here, I could change my units over to inches or feet or millimeters, whatever works. If you notice the way that this pops up, this is how all the tools in here are going to work. You're going to click on the button to do something, and then it's going to pop up this little module which you can move around, and this is where your options will be. Okay, so that's pretty much the standard of how this program works. In named views, this is just going to be your named views for how you can look at stuff. Your top, your front, so just more ways of moving around here. You can make your own name views. We're not going to worry about that for now, but long story short, this is pretty much the same thing as this over here. Okay, and then in our origin, this is going to be where our files go. So let's just really quickly, I'm just going to grab one of the create tools, and in the create tool, I'm going to get down here, I'm going to get all my primitive shapes. So let's just make a box. Okay, the first thing that you do is you choose the plane that you want to put the box on. All right. So I like to go home because then I can see like the dimensionality. So I usually want to put it on the ground plane here. If I go from the top, sometimes it's confusing like which one I'm looking at. So I like to click home, and then I'll click the flat plane on the bottom. So I'll click here, and I'll click to just open up the sketch. Okay, so it first draws a sketch of the box. You can just drag to the size you want. You could put in a specific size here, so I could say 20 millimeters. I'll just hit tab, do 20 millimeters, then hit enter. Okay, then it will give you the option to increase your z-index. Again, you could put 20 in here manually. You can still scale all the other sides of the box. And notice when you click on one of the scale widgets, it gives you that that size module here that you can actually put your units in so that you can keep scaling it exactly how you want it. Okay, usually it will default to new body. You can do other things with these bodies, like join them to other bodies, cut them out of other bodies, intersect them with other bodies, etc., etc. We just want a square. We just want a new body. So I'll click OK. And then what you can see here is I have a new folder that popped up here, and if I called bodies, and if I open it up, here is my actual shape. It's a body. It's a closed shape. So I can turn it on and off with this little light bulb here. I can rename it by clicking in here. And the more you make different shapes, they'll appear underneath bodies. If I go here and just turn off all the bodies, it'll turn off all the bodies underneath there. So in bodies, that's where all your shapes are. If you make sketches, okay, so I'll go to create a sketch, choose my plane that I'd like to work on. I'm going to hide this so that I can grab it, and I'll choose a line, and I'll just make another box. Okay, so this is a sketch. It's going to kind of be like Illustrator. It's just vector. So as you see when I have sketches, and I'll click Stop Sketch, it'll pop up underneath sketches. Okay, so sketches are going to be just your Illustrator lines, pretty much. And inside of there we go. Now it's opening. Here's my sketch, so I can name it box 2, whatever you want to name it. Okay, so that's where your stuff is going to be. It's going to be hidden under here. Bodies are going to be your solid objects. Sketches are going to be your vector, flat shape sketches. Last thing we're going to take a look at, you can go, you could do your Command Z, you could do back, your undo here. This stuff here where it says extrude, that's just going to be like your major moves. It's kind of just like a history of like all the major moves that you've made. And then up here we have a lot more tools, okay? So this first option here, this is called your workspace. There's a bunch of different types of 3D modeling that we can toggle in between. We're going to be working in model mostly. We may be working in sculpt just a little bit. So if yours is not does not look like mine, you can find a model in here. Okay, so we're going to be working model. Model just works with sort of like your regular shapes, your primitives. In model you can extrude. You can extrude sketches. You can do sort of like your basic stuff pretty much. In Sculpt, Sculpt allows you to work with these meshes that you can kind of like mush around like clay, okay? So it's really different. I would say maybe a good thing to compare it to is model's going to be sort of like based on building blocks, all right? So maybe this would be more synonymous with like wood, which you can like chop up in certain ways and, you know, carve into and stuff like that. And Sculpt, it's a little more malleable, right? So you can get in there and you can kind of put like organic shapes on things and make forms that, don't really have hard edges, don't necessarily come from like a primitive shape. You can literally sculpt things from these primitives that have these different meshes that you can like move and change around. So each of the workspaces, we'll switch back to model, comes with a bunch of tools. In here, Sketch, these are all the different types of lines that you can make in the program. You can do a line, rectangle. All right, so this is kind of like your pen tool and your primitive shapes that you have in Illustrator. Arc, polygon, ellipse, spline. Line is just going to be straight lines, and then your spline is going to be that kind of more organic line with the handles that you can move things around. So for instance, when I use line, it just allowed me to do sharp angles. With spline, it will allow you to make more organic shapes, kind of like Illustrator. And then there's your little handles there. You can actually go back in. Oops, if I go to Stop Sketch, you can go back in. If I click on this, and you can edit like so. Okay, so you can kind of tweak it just like you would in Illustrator to kind of make your shapes exactly what you want them to be. I actually find this a little easier than the pen tool, honestly. So in Sketch, that's all your sketch stuff that you can do just to make those vector lines. Create is going to be down here, is going to be all of your primitive shapes, and then sort of standard stuff that you can do with primitive shapes. Okay, so a lot of these commands are going to work with sketches. So for instance, I can go to extrude, and I can click on a sketch, and I can extrude it into a shape. Okay, you can also get there from, if you right click here, you can go to press pull is kind of the same thing. Okay, and then that will pull it into a full shape. And now check it out, I have two more bodies, but my sketches are actually still there. They're just on the bottom. Okay, so you can do that with extrude if you want to just click the extrude command. Revolve, sweep, loft, those are things that a little bit more advanced things that you can do with sketches to turn them into shapes. Okay, so in Create, you get shapes, and then you have things where you can turn sketches into shapes. Modify will allow you to modify and change your solid shapes. Okay, so again, just to review, sketches are how you make sketches and how you alter sketches. So you can like round the corners like this, stuff like that. Create will allow you to just grab primitives, but it will also allow you to take sketches and turn them into your full 3D shapes, your bodies, okay? Modify will allow you to do things to the bodies, like slice them, align them, put rounded corners. So let's try this fillet command really quick. Click aside, pull it in. You got a nice little archy shape here, okay? Click OK. All right, so that allows you to kind of make shapes like so. Some other things, we can split faces, we can combine things, we can punch holes in things with the combine. Assemble we're not going to really use much because we're not really making too many, we might be making some joints, but we're going to focus mostly on these three things. Inspect is really helpful because it'll allow you to measure things. So we'll just click measure, and you can say 1 point to the next point, and then it'll give you the distance between those 2 points. You can also click on a line, it'll give you the length of that line. Click on a face, it'll give you the length of the face, the radius, the diameter, all that good stuff. So this is how you can measure things. Insert if you want to bring in a SVG from Illustrator, or if you want to bring in a background image, you can do so here. So for instance, if you wanted to bring in a sketch, let me just select our plane, select our image, let's say Do this one here. Let's say I want to trace this shape or something. I can just open it, okay? And I can move it around. I can scale it here. And then I can click OK, and then I can trace on top of it. So this is going to be in canvases. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time opening these today, okay? And if I right click on it, I have some options. So I can edit my canvas, I can move it, I can show hide it, I can replace image file, I can fit in the window, okay? But this will allow you to trace some shapes with your sketch tools. Okay, so I think that's a good intro. Sculpt has a lot of other tools as well. These are, I would say, a little bit more advanced, so we'll get into those in subsequent tutorials. But I hope this was a good overview for you just to get started. I would highly recommend just practicing moving around, maybe just kind of throwing some sketches on there, throwing some shapes on there, and just kind of play with it just so that you can get comfortable with the whole environment before you get into more advanced tutorials. Okay, bye.